That's a real amazing side of. That's a side?
Yeah, that's the furniture.
Oh, perfect, thank you.
God, that's awesome. It's all on paper plates, which I kind of love, as long as it's paper.
What is that? The plate?
And this?
Yeah.
It's probably paper.
What can you feel?
It's paper. It's got like some kind of coating on it. I can feel on the bottom it's paper. It's not plastic. It looks plastic, right?
Yeah, it looks like rattan or something.
Yeah, that's perfect. I was thinking about like what I would ask you and stuff, and I realized that I really don't know you very well. Like I know bits and things and stuff, but I'm gonna start with when you were young. Did you like solder something or bang some metal and?
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Is that all you got?
Yeah, that's all I want. I generally don't eat in the.
You don't eat?
I don't
have
eat
some
till
fruit,
like
please.
3 o'clock or
Can
something.
you have some fruit?
I mean, that's why I got the toast.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, when was the first time you did that and you were like, oh?
Well, I think that the non-realization aspect of what I do is my parents used to give me old appliances to take apart to keep me busy. So I would get an old clock or an old toaster or an old appliance, an old can opener or something. Back in the day, you used to have the little round clocks that sat on the side table next to the bed.
Yeah.
So I remember taking those things apart, and it was just fascinating for me. And then, when my dad was doing his work, he was a welder. My mom.
Oh, he's a welder.
Yeah.
Like, what did he weld?
Metal.
No, what did he make?
Oh, well, he worked for LA County. He was in
solder, not weld.
What?
Did you say weld or solder?
Weld.
Welded.
Welding.
What did he weld?
He created things. He was a bit of an engineer, and he worked for LA County, and he worked for steam plants in LA, and he was a CB in the Navy, so they would go and build bridges and basically create the infrastructure for the troops to come in. So, stuff like that. So he was very much an engineer, and then he had his own business, a mobile welding business, and he would do anything that needed welding, fences or create all sorts of stuff. So he would take me with him, and I learned how to weld early on, and from like 6 or 7 years old, that was what I saw my dad do. And whether, he told me numerous times, don't do it, it's a hard life, you won't like it. And I
very really, blue collar.
Yeah, but the thing
Extreme
is,
blue collar.
He was very artistic, but he never used it for artistic purposes. So I only use it for artistic purposes. So
how did you know he was artistic? Did he make anything?
He created things on the side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he wasn't all business, but he grew up in that age of you have to provide for your family. You have to have 1 or 2 or 3 jobs, and you have to create your retirement and do everything the way you're supposed to. And I'm quite the opposite. So my focus has always been artistic and non-commercial. So that's how I started, basically.
So do you remember what was your very first, where you said, I'm going to make something creative? I know you didn't say it in those words, but where you actually got the soldering iron and you were like, I'm going to make something. I'm going to make art.
Well, it was in high school, and it was like freshman in high school, like ninth grade. I was maybe, what, 14, 15? And I think the teacher had been talking about recumbent bicycles, so I brought in my bike, and I cut it up and turned it into a recumbent.
What's a recumbent?
So a recumbent means to recline. So I cut the bike in half and I extended it, and my dad helped me make a seat that you recline in, and we made these not handlebars but steering mechanisms that go under the seat, and it extended the chain, so it was a recumbent bicycle.
You made it a stretch limo.
Yeah, kind of.
I know.
I was driving or riding it. I lived in Agoura, and I had friends in Thousand Oaks, which is about, I don't know, maybe 5 miles. And there's this one main street that goes from Agoura to Thousand Oaks, off the side of the freeway. And I was on that one day, and someone from the local newspaper saw me and took pictures of me, and that was the first time I was in the newspaper. And then a couple of years later, I did another one. It was a tandem recumbent. And I had created this thing and welded it in at home and in class. And that's kind of what started it. But as far as like creating and being creative, it's always been there.
And you engineered, so that makes so much sense now, because when I see your art, you have things that are moving and spinning, and it's like now I know.
That movement, the idea of mobility and non-static art that is static, that stands still, holds no interest for me.
Oh, I see.
I mean, you have to get your chops. You have to do those things to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
So I did that forever, but even my early pieces of art, like finished, polished pieces, were very three-dimensional. They weren't just flat.
Right.
Even though when I was in school, my major was printmaking, I still always went back to three-dimensional. I went to school for printmaking, so lithography and silk screening and wood blocks and etching. Yeah, exactly.
You got a degree?
So no, I didn't. My grandfather was a printmaker, a professional lithographer.
Okay.
So the talent runs in the family. Like my mom has a piece of his that he did during the war. They would send him the English. He was British, so the English army sent him out to scout locations where he knew the Germans were undercover. So he would go out with his bicycle, and he would set up his little watercolors, and he would paint pictures of like little inns or little places that they knew that the Germans were at, and then he would bring those back, and that was basically the equivalent of us taking satellite photos these days.
Cognizant photos.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so different.
Yeah. And when he came back after the war, they moved to America, and he opened a print shop, and I used to spend time over there. I was really enthralled with.
Wait, where?
At his print shop.
But where was he print shop?
Oh, he lived in the valley in North Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
His shop was littered with the stones, the big limestone blocks that you would do printing on. And then after that, after they stopped using the stones, they started using aluminum plates so you could do mass runs.
Okay.
And so his shop was littered with those plates.
Wow.
So that was an early influence. So it's always been around me in one form or another.
I don't think I've ever seen any of your print work.
No. Not a lot of it has survived. I have a few pieces, little small pieces. The first piece I ever sold, like as an artist, was a little, 4x6 etching, a little abstract woman's head. And I went to a friend's gallery in Hollywood, and the woman who ran it said, "How much for this?" And she took it, and I said $20. And she gave me $20 for it. So that was the first piece I ever sold.
I was going to ask you that, yeah.
So that piece actually, she ran a rental gallery for the studios, but I think she kept it for herself. It was just.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So then from there, I started renting my work to the studios.
Okay.
And at that point, I didn't have a lot of sculpture. I had a lot of printmaking. I mean, I was popping out, monotypes and monoprints
Yeah.
and etchings, and
They would just hang them on the walls or.
well, they frame them and hang them on the wall, and then the set designers or set dressers would come in and pick them and choose them for motion picture and television. So during the 90s, you name a TV show that was popular, and my art was probably on it.
I'm gonna research. I'm gonna try to find it. Could I find it?
You have to know what my art looks like.
No. But what show do you know? You must know what shows.
So they used to give me invoices every month, so I was very popular for like 10 years. So Friends and ER and.
Okay, I'm gonna look.
You can. I mean, they don't put my name up there.
No, it's okay. So you said it was monoprint, meaning one
Monoprint,
color,
yeah.
and you said it was abstract.
Yeah, most of my work is abstract. Yeah.
I'm gonna find one.
Sure.
Or you can come over one night. I'll make you dinner.
Sure.
And we can go through them. That would be so exciting.
There's a very prominent. My work was in the Fight Club.
Okay.
My work was in a movie called The Other Sister. Have you heard of that?
No.
I think it's Juliette Lewis
I love her.
and Giovanni Ribisi, and her doctor was, I can't remember the doctor's name. In his office, right behind his head, they have all these scenes, and there's this blue piece, and it has little darker blue squiggles, and I called it David Hockney's pool.
Oh my god,
So,
I gotta find that.
Yeah, it's right behind his head in his office. So I have a lot of stuff like that. Clueless, my art was in Clueless. Blade, the kind of science fiction vampire with Wesley Snipes. My art's been in everything.
That is really cool.
Yeah, so I did that for
And you made a decent
20
living?
years. Yeah. Well, I was going to school at the time. It was like extra income.
What'd you go to school for?
Art. But here's the thing, I only went for a semester. I decided I've learned how to do these things. I don't need the academics. Yeah, I don't need.
I know, math, science, history.
Yeah, so basically I stopped going to school and I went to like a local junior college, just to use the facilities. So that's when I started doing ceramic. So I have a ton of ceramics that I was doing. And then printmaking and sculpture. I started doing stone sculpture at that point. That was early on. And then, I just kept going.
Yeah. I have a lot of artist friends, but I only have two that from day one. Not like me, where, we knew we had something, we were interested in art. I mean, even though my father was half German, half Spanish, it's my mom that raised me, and in the Japanese culture, girls don't grow up to be artists. That's just weird. You don't make any money. How'd you get from the valley to here?
I was born and raised in the valley until I was about 10 years old. Then we moved north to Agoura. So then I went to high school, junior high and high school there.
Okay.
And then my parents we moved to Thousand Oaks, which is just above that. And then
How come they moved so much?
What?
How come they moved?
They just kept upgrading, and
okay.
My parents were of an age and a generation that they didn't like the whole idea of busing, and they didn't like the idea. They liked the idea of clean white schools.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they were racist, but they were racist.
Everybody was back then.
Yeah. So, anyways, they kept moving north and moving to bigger and bigger houses. That's
the American California dream.
It's the formula for them,
Okay.
and that's what they did. So I just kept going north. I had a stone carving studio in Ventura.
You did stone carving too?
Oh yeah, I've been to Italy a couple of times carving stone. So, and then I moved up to Santa Barbara, and
You're like a true artist.
Yeah.
It's like I want to be you when I grow up.
I want to be someone else when I grow up. And then I moved up to San Francisco, and I went to school in San Francisco also. I was only there for a year, but I really enjoyed San Francisco. So I moved back up there, and this was pre-2000, and it was just right when the dot-com bubble was happening.
Okay.
So I used my skills to kind of work for those people redoing the old buildings into loft spaces. And so I spent a few years up there, when I was still in San Francisco, I did a couple of big sculptures and did some guerrilla art and got a couple of commissions for doing bigger sculptures. So moving into this house, and this was further northeast in Pleasanton, I started doing bigger sculpture because I had the space. So then I was there for a while, and then I moved back close by in Redondo, I think.
Yeah.
And then I've just been here off and on. You know, I went out to Vegas. My mom moved to Vegas, so I moved with her, got her out there and got her situated, and I ended up, that was the beginning of the pandemic, so I got stuck there for a while.
It sounds like from a very young age you kind of knew where you were going, and then you went through a stage where you were like a true artist, meaning not just making art, but you were learning, you were going where you were trying everything. What if you weren't interested in art and maybe your family wasn't into that? Like, what do you think you would have been? Or probably not someone in a suit, because I just don't see you that way. But do you understand the question?
Yeah.
Where would you be?
Yeah. Unfortunately and fortunately that I couldn't settle. That's just who I am. So if I cannot do what my soul's calling is, I really don't know other than something creative, you know, something where I'm making a difference, you know, just
Okay.
just
I
to
know,
do,
I get what you're saying.
yeah, just to fit into the mold or go along
You're
with
a
the
creative
flow.
person through and through.
Yeah. No matter what I do, it has to have that flair to a certain extent, which is to my detriment now because I feel like society has become very homogenized. You know, they don't want things that are different. I always thought that California was like about innovation, thinking outside of the box. And there are a few people, but if you don't have the business sense or you don't have the right people behind you, you're just a weirdo artist, you know?
Well, it's worse now because the political climate, it's going to get worse. We're
I'm
being
sure.
forced to be vanilla white.
Mm-hmm. Cookie cutter.
Actually, and they also want to send us females back to the kitchen,
Mm.
pop out babies and back to the kitchen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I am, you know, in the back of my head, I'm thinking about the big plan of getting out of here. I don't know where I'm going to go. I mean,
not yet.
I would love to go to, you know, the south of Spain or, you know, Greece. Specifically for myself, I need the warmth. I need a
you know,
more...
I'm going to one of the small, I looked up about 8 of them outside of Barcelona because Barcelona is so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many expats now over there. I want to go out there, so I'm learning my Spanish.
Yeah.
But maybe if the timing's right, we can go there together and buy a piece of property together. And you can make as much noise as you want.
I'll be perfectly honest. I have no desire to own property.
I'll buy it. I love the whole idea. Very pastoral, you know. I want to go and check under the 6 chickens I have, and if they laid some eggs, we have eggs. If they didn't, then oh well, we'll have something else, you know.
Yeah.
You can't rent property like that. You have to buy it.
Oh, you can.
You can?
Excuse me. Yeah. There's
Oh,
all
well,
sorts
maybe.
of places.
Oh.
You know, in Italy, you can get property in a town that comes with orchards that are like 400 years old that have been left to go to seed because no one's there to do anything with them.
Yeah, but how expensive is that?
It's not expensive because
You
everyone
gotta send
has...
me information because that's what I want to do.
What happens is the younger people leave those towns because there's no work. So the towns, all the old people are dying off, and there's just towns that have everything that would have sustained a community, you know, 100 years ago. But now there's no one there to make the town operate. So they're basically giving it away. Really, I look up this stuff all the time.
Okay.
But what I've determined is I need a warmer climate, a warmer culture, and one that's open to what I do, you know?
I want more greenery. I need more greenery than Greece.
That's Italy.
I know. That's why Greece is not it's not attractive to me. But all right, so you're heading out there.
I don't know what I'm doing. I know that I want to do it sooner than later.
Right.
The system is so rigged, not in the individual artist. You have to be part of the machine to have anything happen. You know, I'm not willing to pay someone 50% of my prices when they have 30 artists in their stable. You know, they're not focusing on me.
I don't want to go to an office. If I don't see a visible incline, then I'm done. I will go get a job. I'll get a smaller apartment. I'll sell all my stuff off. I'm not buying storage. I think that's like the biggest ripoff known to man. 7 months. So I'm going to work hard because it was taking so much time to organize it and keep it updated. And I mean, I'm talking about thousands of hours designing it. So making the art, I'm not even talking about making the art. So, you know, I made the art and then cropping it, rearranging it, because it's all digital, to make it on something that's a piece in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you see my art, you can't pretty much just crop anywhere and that'll work.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter because, and then putting it onto the design, and then filling out the whole thing, and making sure, you know, the taxes and the shipping and the everything, and then advertising and buying it and putting it in the store and whatever. It's not worth it.
I know.
Period. It's not worth it. So yeah. So I have like a handful of people who buy a handful of stuff. You know, I have a handful of people who buy maybe once a year a big piece of art. I don't want to live like that. I mean, why
actually,
bother?
that wouldn't be so bad if you could afford to live like that. That's part of the problem here now is where we live. I mean, you just can't afford to be here as an artist. You know.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I'm kind of like you in the sense that I do 99% of my sketching on the computer.
Oh, actually, I don't do sketching, and I don't start any of my art on the computer unless it's almost all of the art that you see on the walls. That was all started by a doodle. All right, so personal questions.
Sure.
You told me once you were engaged, right?
I was married.
Married. Oh, that's right, married. Tell me whatever you want about that. I mean, I already know.
Being married?
Yeah. And why do you think? Like, what happened? First of all, how did you meet her?
I lived in Thousand Oaks. My studio was in Ventura. Between those two cities, towns, whatever, is Camarillo.
Okay.
So my friend lived in Camarillo, so I would drive and pick up my friend, and there's a little coffee shop that opened, and I met this woman there one night, and it turned out her aunt owned the coffee shop, and she was just working there.
Yeah.
And we hit it off, and it was almost immediate. And there were weird circumstances. My dad had cancer, and her mom had cancer. So that's not what we bonded over. We really hit it off, obviously. 6-7 months later, my dad died, and she and I ran off to Vegas and got married, which is something we didn't want to do. She wanted to have the big traditional wedding.
Oh, so
you know,
why?
her whole family. I probably because of my mom. My mom wanted to be rid of me, pawn me off. So it was just the wrong thing to do, and it really was. No, we didn't have enough time to get to know each other and really hash out what we wanted together. I mean, we definitely loved each other, but all the circumstances were really against. So we split in September or something. So
Wait, what was the time frame on that? Because you didn't say.
So we met in December,
Okay, December.
and then
So it wasn't even a year.
no,
Okay.
it was like 9 months, 8 months,
So were you like
9 months.
gonna
Yeah.
strangle each other, or was it a slow burn?
No, it wasn't like that at
Just a
all. It was
slow
just we didn't communicate well because there was
Oh.
so much other stuff going on that was in the way of our being a happy couple.
Yeah.
She had to take care of her mom because her mom was at a place where my dad was a few months earlier.
Okay.
Her family, she had all her family there, and it just wasn't conducive for a good relationship. It just didn't work out. I was immature. She was immature to a certain extent. We just weren't ready. And I was at the time 27, 28.
Yeah.
Call me a late bloomer or whatever, but I was just not emotionally mature enough to deal with everything.
Well, they say now, I think it used to be 25. They say that your cerebral cortex is not fully is it the cerebral cortex? What's anyway,
The
part
frontal
of the
lobe.
part of your brain that makes major decisions, good decisions, or any decisions for that matter, used to not be mature until you were 25, and they moved it up to 27 or 28 now.
Well, for me, I think it's about 55.
Yeah.
So there's not like any animosity or anything like that. She ended up getting married, I don't know, like 10 years after that. And 12 years, something like that. And she had a little girl, and then her husband just died about a year ago.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's a widow now. But, I had my own relationships after that. And at a certain point, I decided I didn't like the way my life was going, the way I was conducting my life, the way everything was going. So I just kind of stepped away from everything, basically focusing on the inner me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the journey I've been on for the past, 15, 17, 18 years.
Yeah. So it's not about the way you look. It's about how you get through the day and being you are consistent. You're on there consistently. Here's the bottom line. If you just make something that you enjoy, I enjoy this. I drink coffee and eat breakfast all over the place just because I love it. It's my meal. And I love to doodle. And my art career started from doodling, from sitting at Casa Arigato every morning and knowing what to do with my hands and just doodling. That is what started it. So I feel like if you just tape or record whatever it is you really enjoy that you're already doing anyway. I hate watching these YouTube videos that are overproduced. They got the background, they got the hair and the makeup and the influencer nails and and the whole. I want it lo-fi. I want people to go back to singing and dancing and coloring and drawing and take up a sport. Do all the things that we did when we were young that have just disappeared.
Well, that's because I think the times we live in, we're so worried about surviving that what you're talking about is almost mental health. It's recreational. It's living a balanced life, and I think that a lot of people don't live a balanced life.
Exactly.
So it's a catch-22. You're telling people you should live a balanced life.
Yeah.
But what they're actually doing is spending the time that they should be living a balanced life. They're sitting on YouTube watching your videos.
No.
So it's a distraction.
It's a distraction, but also take 10 minutes out of your day. It doesn't have to be doodling. It could be while you're cleaning house. Belt out, a song that you love because maybe when you were a freshman in college, you were in a band or something, Everything that you do that's enjoyable and a distraction brings your blood pressure down doesn't have to be this big adventure. That's all. I remember we had this incredible conversation. I wish I had it recorded where you said, I don't do it with a purpose. I don't do art with a purpose. I just have to do it. And so I kind of feel that way. I have to draw. I have to crochet. I have to paint. I have to create. It doesn't have to be a thing or a certain thing. I just have to create. I can't sit around and watch TV or, work all day and not do anything. On the tennis court, sometimes even like I look and I see something on the ground and I'm like, oh, that looks like, I see things everywhere.
I take pictures of them all day long.
And then I erase them because people think like, what the? But so
I don't erase them, and 90% of my photos is spots on the cement. Really.
I know.
Or
got
half
that.
of a leaf on a plant that looked like a face.
That's it? That's all you're going to do is a carrot, huh?
When inspiration hits, it hits. And when it doesn't, it doesn't.
So the thing,
and that's why I look at my photo reel on my camera and I say, oh, there's some inspiration. Those 3 spots on the cement that I took yesterday morning.
Yeah. So when I teach people how to doodle, I tell them not to think. Just keep drawing circles. Circles is great. If you don't know what to draw, like if I don't know what to draw over here, then I just start drawing circles.
Well, for me, I tell people the same thing that, I play over and over in my head it's, you don't have to have an idea. You have to put the pencil to the paper.
Exactly.
And that's just the beginning.
I hate drawing cute little animals. Don't want to do it anymore, but I do.
Why?
Somehow. I don't know. It always comes up.
Well, then why fight it?
I don't know, because it's so cliche.
Stop worrying about what is and isn't cliche.
Yeah, that's true. And people are always saying, oh, your stuff is so cute. Oh my God.
I like turning things, inanimate objects, into characters.
I remember when I was young-ish, and I remember one of my favorite books was Folk Tales of Japan. I think that's what it's called. It's just called Folk Tales of Japan. But this is like way before Harry Potter and all this, Marvel comics and stuff, which I love. But I remember reading it from front to back. Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, anything that was James and the Giant Peach Tree, all the things that were so weird. Like all the other kids were Disneyland and fairy tales and stuff, and I loved the weird shit. That's why I kind of wonder why I've moved into the cuteness zone.
Well, that stuff is just an influence to what you're doing now, right?
In order to do demented art, I need to be angst and angry and happy.
I don't think so. I don't think that's the formula. I really don't. I think it's part of your psyche. The piece I'm working on now, it's a 3D or rendition of a trapper keeper.
Of a trapper keeper?
You know what the trapper keeper is?
No.
So during the 80s and the early 90s, they had these vinyl covered folders, and it had a flap over on one side.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do now.
So they had some really weird graphics. It's kind of a cross between the movie Tron, Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, and Miami Vice. It had
God.
Yeah, it had all those weird 80s, 90s graphics. Yeah. Okay. It started out as something completely different, but I'm in the process of painting it also. A lot of the stuff moves.
Oh my God, that is beautiful.
Yeah, and
you made something that can't be into really beautiful art.
And it's all 3-dimensional. So let me.
Wait, do you have that hanging?
No. So see how dimensional it is?
Can you send me those?
I'll send it to you. It's not done.
No, but
wait.
I'll say that it's a work in progress.
Sure. So all these things, this, they turn.
Yeah.
It's like. So what does it mean when you're doing a 3D version of a folder that keeps your papers when you were in junior high and high school?
Yeah.
And that this is your influence now?
It just kind of came out from the folds of your brain.
I guess.
The fissures. The dangling carrot. There you go. It's the ninja carrot. And then this is the cute the cute thing that I
The
did.
kawaii mouse.
Bye.